Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey, doubleheader week.
Yeah, it's me, Daniel,
And it's me, Ben.
on Spoiled Rotten.
Oh, that shelf.
Boom. As Ben mentioned, this is a doubleheader week. We did our this will be the first one of the week, which is our Quantumania spoiler review. And then on Thursday, you can definitely expect to find our episode 6 of The Last of Us spoiler review. So you got 2 of us last week and 2 of us this week. So hopefully you're enjoying that because it's over.
Yeah, don't get used to it.
Yeah,
please don't.
Unless there's another movie that comes out while we're doing a show, then definitely expect it or ask about it.
Wouldn't that be fun, eh? If the Disney Plus just dropped a series on us and without any marketing, and just like, hey, here you go, Secret Invasion. It was a secret that it's out. That would be fun.
I would love for them to just put it out, but yeah. They want to space things out, so we'll see. It'll come.
Fair enough.
Ready.
I mean, they know what they're doing.
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Yes. AKA the Kang movie.
Kang is a big part of this movie.
He's a huge part of this movie.
I feel like up front, I will be very honest. I feel like I'm being gaslit, if I'm being honest.
How so?
This feels like the way everyone was speaking about Justice, like the Snyder Cut Justice League and everything, where I'm just like, I just do not see what everyone else is seeing.
Okay, so you gotta fill me in on this. Like, what's
so like everyone is saying this is terrible, it's the worst, and this is evidence of superhero fatigue, which is can't be, but it's
I feel like people
not liking it might be evidence, but the movie can't be evidence of superhero fatigue.
But the slowing down of the like releases on Disney Plus is evidence of superhero fatigue. That is a better argument.
I think that's different. I think that's
different, but it's better evidence.
They need to stop the crunch on their artists, and they need to actually not try to just hit dates and actually put out quality again. Like instead of just being like, we set a date, so it has to come out. But I think I genuinely really like this movie. There's no like way around it. I thought that the thesis statement was strong. I thought there was a lot of things to spin off of it. I don't like. I get that people are like, you get a lot of Kang, but I honestly, it is a Scott Lang story. It's a Scott and Casey Lang story to me. I genuinely. There's movies like Thor: Love and Thunder where I'm like, I understand what people don't like about this. I just like it. Whereas for this one, I'm like, I do not get what people don't like. Like everyone being like, oh, it's just a cog in the wheel. Like it feels like a one-off. Like yes, there's obviously repercussions for this, but like it genuinely felt like a comic book where you're like thrown into a crazy situation and it resolved. Like it felt contained in that sense. Obviously, yes, we are now fully introduced to Kang the Conqueror and the concept of not even the concept, but the visual of all the different Kangs now that you could possibly have. But I genuinely was just like, yeah, like this felt like another fun Ant-Man movie in a way that I didn't feel like Ant-Man and the Wasp was.
Right. That Ant-Man and the Wasp was not fun. That's very, very true. But in this one, I'm definitely mixed, and I'm excited. I still don't know where I stand on this movie. I've done so much thinking, so much reflecting about it, and there's just certain places where I'm like, I enjoyed myself here. This is where I'm confused. I didn't care about this part. And overall, it left me feeling question mark. So I don't have a strong opinion on it, but I know I didn't hate it. So that's where I stand right now.
There's a very strong left-leaning slant to this, so I can see that not being good for people, whether they're cognizant of it or not. I can see that. I also can see left-leaning people being like, "Fuck you, Disney! How dare you!" Like, you're still part of the problem, so why are you trying to preach?
Why are you capitalizing on our politics?
Yeah, but the movie starts with Cassie in jail for being like, I wanted to stop cops from displacing already
Mhm.
displaced and unhoused people, and I don't think
Mhm.
that's cool. And then the movie introduces the concept. Well, we've already seen it in promotion for this, but the name of the book, "Watch Out for the Little Guy" or "Look Out for the Little Guy," like
Yeah.
that is the whole point of the movie. Is you need
Mhm.
to be looking out for the little guy,
Mhm.
and even at the end when Kang is like, "Oh, you could have just looked the other way," like that to me was the point of the movie is like
Mhm.
just look the other way, you get what you want, just look the
Yeah.
other way.
What happens when
And
you
then
do that? Yeah.
Scott being told constantly by his daughter and then through other people in the movie, like, stop looking the other way.
Mhm.
Like, you can't just be like, oh yeah, I saved the earth, so there we go, I got what I wanted out of this. Like, you are
Yeah.
still a superhero, you need to be. And obviously the call to action isn't just to superheroes, but the
Mhm.
idea that, like, just because I think Cassie even says it, and we talked about it in Thor Love and Thunder, of like, just because it's not happening to you doesn't mean that it's not a problem or that it can't happen to you.
Mhm.
And I thought all of that was really well explored through different characters throughout the movie, and
Mhm.
it was actually exciting to me to be like, oh wow. And then there's the obvious part where Hank Pym is like, oh, I know socialism is a charged word, but there's a lot to
Mhm.
be. And then you're like, yeah, like, I know. This has been top of mind for a few years now. Like,
Mhm.
I thought it was very cool to have that. And again, I understand if you are left leaning and you're like, okay, fuck you, Disney. Like, you're not actually helping this situation.
Right.
That part I understand. But for people to be like, it's a nothing movie, or I'm like, I know, especially the end. I especially love the end where it's um Scott being like, uh, you know what? I will just look the other way because I got what I needed out of this. Like,
Mhm.
you know what? Best not to think too much about it. And
Yeah. And
in
knowing
that
what that's
sense,
gonna
yes,
do. Yeah.
that's pushing on to the next thing. But I like
Mhm.
that. Like, I actually like that for a character to be like, I went through all of this, but
Mhm.
I feel like I got what I wanted out of this, so that's it. As opposed to
Mhm.
genuinely thinking about it. And I was not always. I've talked about characters getting what they want versus getting what they need, which
Mhm.
obviously he needs to actually still be looking out for the little guy
Yep.
and not looking the other way. And he gets what he wants, which is to be able to look the other way because he did do something, and now
Yeah.
he can be like, and I got my family back, so I'm looking the other way
Mhm.
again.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of things you said, I really, really agree with, right? Like and the people that are left leaning that are like, fuck you, Disney, about this. I'm like, are you really looking to Disney to make political statements for us right now? Let's just do that ourselves. So
Yeah,
let's,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
that's what I say to that. But the whole kind of, yeah, I like the left leaning stuff that they wove into it and all that kind of stuff because people forget that Scott Lang originally in the first movie did what to get in jail. He didn't steal stuff for like whatever.
Yeah,
He
he was
like
doing left leaning things, like
yeah, he was
trying to
doing left-leaning
redistribute
things.
the wealth.
Exactly. He was redistributing wealth. They just didn't spend a lot of screen time on that reason,
Yeah.
right? And that's
And
why
that's what
people are
his
like, okay,
daughter is trying to
cool.
remind him, like, you, before
Exactly.
you got the powers, were doing shit like this.
Yeah, it's like, hey, dude, you're not retired, man. You're
Yeah.
not you wrote a book. Congratulations. Ha ha. We're gonna make jokes about it. And I do like that they keep poking at it because I do agree with the whole idea of like, have you announced your retirement?
Mhm.
Because Iron Man died for everyone, and you're out here writing books and podcasts.
Yeah,
And
he's
I
looking the
it,
other way. He's like, yeah, I
looking
got the
away.
shiny stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I get to bask in my thing, and like even Hope is like, no, I'm using the Hope Van Dyne
Right.
Institute
He
now
says
to
like
do
she's actually
something.
helping people.
Yeah, and all he's doing is like basically narcissistic look at me crap, and
Yeah.
everyone's calling him out on it. And I really, really like that because I'm like, okay, I get why a lot of like cis hetero white men looking at the lens of Scott Lang would be like, that's unfair. But I'm like, he doesn't do anything actively in this movie but react. He doesn't take initiative whatsoever.
Well,
It's
that's
always
what I like
like,
about the movie as well, is that yes, you can look at him as a like a placeholder for all cis white men, but
well,
in
they're going to look
general,
at
you're
that
supposed
no matter what,
yeah, but
right?
what I'm saying is you also should just be looking at him as you as a person choosing to look the other
Mhm.
way because it's not comfortable for you. And
Yeah.
I like I like that the movie is also asking you to, maybe you won't be comfortable, but it is the time to just like hang out and be like, oh, everything's fine, is
Mhm.
gone
Mhm.
for us in real life and for the people in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just look the other way. And I do think that, again, it might be subconscious, maybe not. I do think that movies that don't let you just relax like that get bashed harder. I think Us was a movie like that too, talking about like, no, like your personal decisions have impact. Like you can't just be, it can't just be your decision. Like,
Right.
and this movie isn't talking about decisions. Well, it is talking about decisions to look away or not to look away, but
Right.
it's pushing a similar like theme here.
Yeah,
Which it is all connected, so you can't just be like, well, that's happening to them, or we're watching The Last of Us. It can't be like, well, we just have to protect our tribe, because you could be that other tribe at any given moment.
Yeah, and the movie even goes to the lengths of showing you what happens when you do look the other way, right? With Janet's whole story is just like this is what happens.
And now you have Kang.
Yeah, you have people that you bailed on, a whole revolution that was very, very important to you and all this kind of stuff, and you bailed on it, and you just basically literally looked the other way. You didn't mention it ever again. Ever. And even when you're there, you're still withholding. And during a point in time where I'm like, I'm pretty sure you have time to talk while you're on a transportation thing, right?
I can see people being frustrated with that.
I am frustrated with that for sure.
But I also am like,
but I mean, it's showing you that what happens when you do look the other way, the problem just gets worse. Yes. It gets so much worse, and it's just, that's the whole point. So it's the idea of, okay, and I like what you said about needs versus wants, because Scott exactly gets what he wants, his family back. That's his whole motivation for the movie. Protect
and
Cassie, protect
enough reasonable
the
doubt
whole
to be
Pym
like,
family.
I did enough. Like he has
exactly
enough to be like, I did enough. So
yeah,
that is what he wants, to be able to have his family, but not feel like a fraud to his family.
Exactly, and not feel like a fraud, because like he did something significant, right? He took out Kang. He took out Kang. Like that's like, to me, that's what leaves me feeling uneasy about the whole movie. Is just like, do I really believe that in this scenario that Ant-Man is the one that took down Kang the Conqueror? But I mean, like, he had a lot of help. I'm not discrediting everything. Hank pulled through.
When it becomes, again, I don't think they use hope, and I'm not looking for them to prop up Evangeline Lilly,
right?
But
well, I mean, just the character.
One thing they do for Hope in this is nothing works until the two of them work together properly.
Correct. Yeah.
But my point, not even this, I think we're saying the same thing, just to bolster your point even more, which is, that is what I like about that. This isn't just an easy ending as well, because he states what the problem is, which is, there's no chance I beat him. But also, if I did beat him, he said that everyone will die. So do I really need to think about this? And this isn't them hand waving away. It is the like rationale people use, which is like, that's too big to think about. Like, that's not something I can control, so I'm gonna look the other way.
Yeah,
and I think that it's the whole movie. That's what I'm saying. Like, that thesis statement is, or not even, it's not a thesis statement, but like what they are exploring is so present in every single scene, even in things where people find it frustrating that Janet isn't explaining things. There's still room to see, like, but people do this. People do try to like just be like, well, not now. This is too big of a discussion to have right now. Like, well, if not now, like, if you're talking about gun control, if you're talking like people being like, we need to talk about this right now, and it's never a good time.
It's never a good time to have these conversations. And again, Janet perfectly encapsulates that, where she's like, and I know where her motivations from her character is coming from, where she's withholding, right? She's had a traumatic past, if you know, like, everything, and then the fact that the immense guilt and the shame she feels from helping Kang and all that kind of stuff, even though there's no way she could have known what it was, and she did actually her best to do it. It was the fact that she was like, no, I got rescued, and I allowed myself to be that role now instead of the role that I took on here, and I allowed myself to look the other way because I'm just, I got to leave.
The mom again and the wife. I
got to leave. I got to retire.
Specifically,
it's the privilege of just having an option of an out, and someone's going to rescue you, right? There's so much wrapped in that I'm like, I get why she's not saying it, but you're at the point now where it's impacting so many other people, and the scale is so much. Now this is just terrible, and I hate it. I really hate it on that aspect of it. But it does prove what happens when you look the other way, as many people do in a position of privilege, especially.
So I get why people would be frustrated, because it feels like it's lazy writing, but I just think it is real. Like I
Yeah,
think that's
I
really
disagree.
what happens.
Yeah, I disagree that it's lazy writing. I disagree. All the stuff around Janet is not lazy writing whatsoever to me. It's deeply nuanced and complex, I feel.
Yeah,
I think
and
what gets lazy is when they're actually in the quantum realm and they're trying to make us care about the village and all that kind of stuff and the revolution. That's what I think is lazy, actually.
oh yeah,
But
I don't think that's lazy at all. I think that's you're just seeing there was an element of telling, not showing, with Cassie being like,
yes,
hey, there were displaced people and I was trying to help them, and
Mhm.
that they're showing you like when it's in Scott's face, like this is what, because that's what the other thing is. I saw it was like a 10-second interview on Letterbox with
Mhm.
Peyton Reed, the director, and
Mhm.
how he's talking about how like Star Wars is definitely his top 5 movie, like as in Star Wars
Right.
from the chapter 4
The
or
OG,
episode
yeah.
4, yeah.
Yeah,
So, but obviously to him it's Star Wars because he saw it in theaters and whatever.
correct.
But like,
Yeah.
um, this movie feels, and I'm not saying because they talk about Jedi and all the things you rightfully point about the religious elements of
Mhm.
Star Wars, but this feels like a movie made by a Star Wars fan, like about
Yeah.
like you see the people on the ground trying to topple the people who, and this is the distinction I would make when you're trying to preserve something versus trying to hoard power, which is
Right.
that is because technically they're in the quantum realm, so everyone there is the little person. Now everyone there is the little guy
Mhm.
you should be worried, because again, if we're expanding to the movie, these are all people they could just ignore,
Mhm.
just like
Mhm.
how Scott can just ignore the unhoused people on
Yep.
like not in the quantum realm, but now he's forced to deal with these displaced people that
Mhm.
didn't have a choice in the matter. They were displaced because of Janet's
Mhm.
actions. Um,
So
and they're like, we are trying to preserve this, so that's why we need to get rid of Kang, not because like we're gonna take the power back, and we're like, and I genuinely feel like that is a big deal that I also can see people not really liking.
right. So what I meant by that is not that the element and the usage of that was poor. It's just the inability for me to actually care about it. Because
That feels like more of a you thing.
well, I mean, it felt like to me there needed to be a scene with Janet and the leader of that resistance, right? To has it felt like to me there needed to be something there, but like the whole time it was like Janet, Janet, Janet. Like there's this huge reputation, but there's no like actual exploration of that on screen to be like this is to have her reckon with the damage that she left behind, right? In all that kind of sense. So
Yeah, I think I don't think that's what the movie is trying to do. I think
I
the
don't
movie
think
is
it's
trying to
trying to
show
do
you.
that, but
I'm saying that's not a
Mhm.
flaw. I'm saying what
Right.
they're showing you is the privilege of the Pims and the Langs,
I
that
get
they
that.
don't ever have to reckon with the
Right.
people's lives who they've destroyed.
And that I get that. And I'm so wrapped up in that it makes me disconnect from this. And that's why I meant that I wanted there to be a bridge between that a little bit more clearly than just Scott and Cassie basically ruining everything. It's like, oh, you brought them here? Yeah, of course they did. But like King's looking for them. All this kind of stuff. It's just I didn't care for
Yeah,
them
and I
as
think
much as
it's
I
a
wanted
generational
to.
thing because
Right.
Cassie is the one that has to fix the issues of, obviously not her actual grandmother, but her grandmother's generation.
Sure. Yeah.
She's the one, again, real life actually makes
Mhm.
sense that
Mhm.
one generation that actually caused the issue can sit there and either disengage or blame the younger generation. Obviously, that's not what Janet's doing, but
Right.
I mean, there is an element of her being like, "What the hell? Why are you dealing with that? Like, you
Yep.
should just never deal with that."
Mhm.
I think that is what I like. Every turn of it makes me be like, it's good because it isn't easy answers. There isn't like, they're not trying to make you feel better about Janet's decisions.
Right.
It is there to force you to think about like, how about like what in your life have you done this with?
Right, but I'm not trying to say that I want to feel better about Janet's decisions. I'm wanting to say that having Janet or having that moment with the rebellion group in some capacity would have connected me and made me care about the rebellion group a little bit more because there was so much
Yeah, and I'm
attention
saying
given
that's
to the
just a
Pims
you
and
problem.
that is
That's not a problem.
yeah, that is just a me problem, but that's a critique I'm willing to give because I'm like because there's so much visual distraction going on in the quantum realm, and I get it, it's beautiful, but I'm just so much more like what's going on over there. And maybe this is just a consequence of me being like, hey, maybe I need to take a little bit more Vyvanse before going to one of these things so I could really, really focus my ADHD. But like, I wasn't
yeah, you
able
could
to
just
really
watch it
connect
more
the
than
same way
once,
I was
I
to
think.
Korg. You know what I mean? I wasn't able to connect with this rebellion group the same way I was able to connect to Korg's rebellious group. You know what I mean? That's
No,
kind of
not
my
really,
thing.
but
Okay.
yeah, I don't know.
Well,
But
that's how
like,
I felt about
yeah,
it. Anyways, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, but but I do agree that the use of that rebellion group, having Scott confront the reality and see and be in it, that is a good thing, right? Because even then, he's still making decisions about just protecting Cassie and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's constantly
Just
like, while he's
yeah,
watching them get like murdered or beat, he's just
yeah,
like,
and
yeah, but like, let's just protect us, and then we'll go get our
yeah,
family.
and showing the entire time, hey, I had the means and capacity to like actually do something to like bigging up or whatever to actually be able to fight a little bit more. Like all he does there in that scene is just like, here, I'm gonna teach Cassie how to punch. And like, I'm like, okay, cool. That's superhero training. That's fun. And you get the Cassie reveal, which I found was cute. The way she's like, you like
Yeah.
my suit, and the way she did it, I'm like, that's kind of cute. That's funny.
Okay, I have a suit.
Yay! It was really, really funny to me. It stood out. But the whole time, it's just him protecting his own stuff
Yes.
and not connecting to anything else. Like him actively being like, this isn't our fight kind of deal. He even says that to Cassie. I'm like,
and her being like, again, it's all tied into that first scene with her, which I thought was great writing, which was like, it's not just for show. Like, there's a lot of things she says in that first scene on the way back from prison that like really helped me lock into the things they do in this movie. One of them, just because it's not happening to you doesn't mean that it's not your problem. And the other thing, when she talks about like, I mean, a guy dressed as a bee came into my room and tried to kill me. Like, I'm not gonna have a normal life. And I know people don't like the look of MODOK, but I was just like, that is such an interesting way to, because then there's a look Cassie gives when she sees him for the first time of being like, oh my goodness, like this guy's still not out of my life. And like that, his whole thing was, again, he's been displaced. There's a whole bunch of people everyone basically in this movie has been displaced, but he's not trying to preserve anything. He's like just so ready to be like the threat again, and so ready to be like, and like that is why you don't have to like be like, oh, poor Darren, because you're just like, well, seems like you could have sided with the rebellion or something. Like you could have done something, but you're just there to be like, I'm the killer machine again. And I like that does connect him and Cassie again. Like she has this element of like, I can do something about now. I don't have to like wait for my dad to save me with MODOK. And I thought, I'm not really gonna get into the visuals of it. I thought it was striking for sure, but I thought the way it played out, for the most part, I was like, this was a good use of MODOK for me, because I don't really care about MODOK. I can see people who care about MODOK being like, how dare they? But I'm just like, I don't care about the character, so I was just like, yeah, that makes sense to me.
To those people, I will say, I'm like, listen, we've established that we're in the multiverse territory, infinite reality. So there's a reality where you have the MODOK you want. So just leave that alone and just let us have this. And not that I'm defending this.
Oswald MODOK show where I was like, this. I'm not
saying
it was legit
fun.
I was just saying, like,
funny. I like that show.
It seems
funny.
Just as goofy as this to me. Like that show seemed just as goofy.
It did, yeah.
So I'm like, I mean, maybe people didn't like that show. I didn't get the sense people didn't like it.
Well, it wasn't connected MCU. I think that's what people are like. Whatever, but I mean, like, there's still a MODOK thing specifically for MODOK. But I'm like, first of all, the character MODOK, I'm like, okay, yeah, it looks weird. It looks really, really strange, and it distracted me the entire time. I thought it would look better from trailer to now. Did not look better. Looked way weirder. So it was just a visual distraction to me. But I'm like, the thing that's interesting to me with all this leftist kind of critiquing and like bashing through this movie, I'm surprised no one's brought up the fact that this is like this is basically like incel rage that he's embodying, right? The idea of like, oh, I'm gonna like,
he's definitely built up in his head like, oh, my mentor's here, and he's like, what? And then even how he tries to rewrite history when he's dying, and he's just like, Scott, you were always the brother to me, and it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
His rants and all that kind of stuff, and just the idea of like, wait, Derek?
Well, he just wants to be next to power, which is a big problem with incels, but also right-leaning people, which is they value the power over the actual betterment of people.
Exactly, because
Like they need to defend Elon Musk. They need to defend
yeah,
like all these
Joe
billionaires that
Rogan.
do not give a shit about them.
Yeah,
And you can see that with Kang. Don't
oh
talk when
yeah,
I'm in the room. Like
yeah,
what are you doing?
do
He will
not do
be
that.
abused by Kang a million times before he's like, there's a whole like community thrive not thriving, obviously, but like they have found ways to have like peace in their life. Like obviously they are fighting towards something, but like in The Last of Us, it's not all doom and gloom to them. They have they are able to round out their lives as best as possible. Like that, there's no way he would be down there that long and be like, nah, it's still better to be with Kang being treated poorly like this.
Yeah, no, he wants to be adjacent to power, so he'll tolerate the abuse because at least from the hierarchy standpoint, he's not down there, and that's so messed up to be like, hey, I'm gonna accept second place and do all this messed up stuff, and like Kang is just, and I love that we're getting to Kang through Darren right now, because, and by the way, one of my favorite gags in this whole thing was when he was in the parallel probability storm. Scott was like, Darren, and then the moment I was like, I know where this is going. This is gonna have such a good payoff. MODOK. That was a great
I definitely
gag.
didn't see that coming, and I was very happy when it happened.
It was really
MODOK.
funny.
Yep.
MODOK. Yep. What's going on? What's the plan? Don't die.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before we get to Kang,
now,
I just well, I know. I mean, we can get to Kang now. I just kind of want. I felt like that was the big thing to get to.
Right. It felt, because I mean, being adjacent to power.
Okay.
It felt like now we have
Kang,
to
then.
talk to Kang about Kang.
We can talk about Kang.
And like that whole, because what you're talking about, like the right winger stuff, not actually wanting to make anything better, but just want to make things their own, right? This is the conqueror,
like, amassing power.
Exactly. He's just amassing power right now, eliminating any possible other universe where someone can challenge him. Kang the Conqueror enters the room, and holy crap, what a performance!
I saw maybe it was a technical, maybe it was a review, but like one of those out of the theater reactions where they just give you a review anyway, but it's not technically a review, and they're like Ultron was able to do more than Kang was. I'm like, what? How do you figure?
No, that's not true.
And I think they were talking about Age of Ultron, like not the comic, the movie. I'm just like, what?
How is that a remote?
But that's what I'm talking about. I feel like I'm being gaslit. Like people are so ready to shit on this movie, and I'm just like, I
agree with that.
Some of it is me reacting to the subjectivity of this, but there's other things where I'm like, well, no, Kang got way more accomplished than Ultron. I feel like that's just a fact. Like that's not me defending the movie. That's just that is just a fact.
That's objectively true.
He has like a whole empire, and he's got he just needs that one last piece, and then he's out.
And I feel like the whole idea of the whole Council of Kangs, which I love seeing. There's so much more to talk about that. But the Council of Kangs being like, oh, this is the one Kang that's like screwing. This is the worst of us. Yeah. We're going to banish him. If that in itself does not say he's a bigger threat than Ultron, the perspective is so screwed. I feel like maybe it's because they can connect with a threat on Earth a lot more than the quantum realm. That I'm like, okay, from a connection standpoint, I can give you that, because I kind of felt the same thing. But he is way more threatening than Ultron. Like just everything about it. I don't know how that person.
And don't get me wrong, I like Ultron. I like Ultron, but kind of what I liked about him was how volatile he could be because he was a baby, basically. Like the whole like cutting off Claw's hand because he mentioned Stark, like stuff like that was really interesting to me. But what I'm saying is, Kang is someone who, when he loses control, it's not like a inconvenient, oops, sorry, cut off your hand. It's like, oh no, you're all dying now.
Yeah, it's vengeful. It's like it's just a complete eruption
most of the time.
Yeah,
which feels scarier. That he's just like,
it's so
not
much
bothered.
Like, the way he basically I don't interrogated Scott or like manipulated Scott. I don't know what the right word is, but got Scott to agree by basically like with just a finger and how calculate like everything Jonathan Majors did there. I'm like, how is it possible that people think Ultron's scarier than this? Anything
I
that's
don't know. I don't think they
reserved.
said it was scarier.
Oh,
I don't
okay,
want to cut up.
well,
I think
bigger
what they were
threat
saying
or
was that
whatever they
like
said.
he was able to get more done
No,
in the 3
okay.
days. That's what they were saying, and
Hard disagree. I
yeah,
mean, hard
yeah, that's what
disagree.
I'm saying. I just disagree with that.
Ultron took over an army that was already built. All right.
Yeah,
Kang
he was
built
AI,
a
so
goddamn army. He just infected the Tony bots that already existed that we
yeah,
saw in action early in the movie. Kang built a freaking army. He already conquered the realm, what's the quantum realm,
yeah.
and like he got banished from shit, and he's already destroyed multiple universes.
Mhm.
They are wrong. They did not get more done.
This is what I'm saying. Like, there's just things where I'm just like, I don't like. At the time, I hadn't seen the movie, and that I will admit also skews how much I like the movie, which was I was prepared for this like nothing of a movie. So then, like when in the first 5 minutes, I'm like, oh, this movie seems like it has something to say.
Yeah.
And then they followed through on it. It wasn't just a throwaway line where it was like, oh my god, like the whole movie is this. And like, yes, it's got visuals. Yes, I think it has a great performance by Jonathan Majors as Kang. But like, and we'll get to other characters. I thought, again, everyone but Hope was doing a good job. And I don't mean that as Evangeline Lilly sucked in the movie. I'm saying they don't seem to care to write anything for her.
I agree. That's 100% what I agree. Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with that for my own personal reasons, and that's on me. But but like in general, yeah, like I don't really get the lack of interest in making her more a part of the actual plot driving.
I like you owning that. But I do agree with you that she's not well written in this movie, and
she's just there to.
It's unfortunate.
Like I get it. Like you have both daughters forcing their parents to do better, but like with Cassie, it's so much more obvious that she's driving things and that she like there's things that matter to her. And like as I said, I really like that it's not something that's explicitly like knocking you over the head over and over. She said it once, and then you get to see how that informs her performance later on about that guy came into my room, tried to kill me and like destroy my life. Like that is something that fundamentally changed the trajectory of my life. And I'm someone who had her dad in jail for like a portion of my early life, like and then blipped away for another 5 years, or not blipped away, but was gone for 5 years. So like for her to hold on to that and then have to deal with him, obviously we knew he would be back because we've seen the commercials, but like her saying that and then you seeing how that actually subtly informs her performance when she's around him, I was like, this is a movie that's doing good things. I don't really get the whole, even if you're a fan, you have to admit this is pretty bad.
Yeah. The Evangeline Lilly stuff is really, really poorly written for sure. It's just a lot of like, here we're giving your character development through these very, like very quick scenes. Yeah. Like it's like, oh, you have Hope Van Dyne now. That's what you do. You're this. But anytime you weren't in that role of Hope Van Dyne, which is like one scene and one quick cut or whatever it is,
cuts to them to go drink beer, which I still think matters because it's her trying to save the world, and then Scott being like the influence of like, let's go drink, let's go look away,
let's go have our fun times. Let's let other people take care of our shit. But and the abuse of power of it too. It's like it's not actively showing you that they're using their suits
costumes to
go to Golden Gate Bridge or whatever, and just to be like, oh, okay, we're gonna have a nice sunset moment just to us two. I'm not saying that they don't deserve it, but it is showing you what they've been up to has not been what they've been doing previously, which has been more active in the superhero community and all that kind of stuff. He's just disengaged. They both have. Different things, but
disengaged because she hasn't been helping Cassie.
You're right
to do stuff and she's doing stuff. It's just I do think it's well written because it is Scott who is the influence that is trying to be like, hey, let's just Scott and Janet are the ones that are trying to let's just not we have each other. That's enough. Let's stop worrying about things.
Okay, yeah, I do take that back because Hope does do a lot because
We
like they
just
tell
don't get to
you,
see it, but
yes,
they tell you about it.
Hope is her foundation is doing all these many things and all this kind of stuff
Like
and
affordable housing,
yeah,
like renewable
so
energy, all that stuff.
lots of great stuff that we're being told about, but never seen again because every other scene that she's in after that point made her look basically the same level of Cassie as a little girl looking for approval from or like something from someone
But
else,
that,
right?
I
And
think that's on
that's so
purpose.
disappointing. It's definitely on purpose, but like there's not any room for her to grow out of that in this movie. And there's nothing beyond that except for, oh, she's got to save Scott now. She's got to do this now. She's got to do this now. None of it means anything for her character until like probably the next time we see her, where we're told after the fact she did a whole bunch of stuff again. I don't know, but you're right. It's a weakly written character. It's just a character that's meant to do stuff.
Well, it's a character that's written to be in service to other people's arcs,
Correct.
as opposed to having her own arc, which is what I'm hearing from you, and I agree that she's in service of other people's arcs, and it's the importance isn't put on her having an actual arc, because everything you're saying, I can see how that directly ties into the themes of the movies and makes sense for the movies. It's just she is one of the titular characters, so it's weird that she doesn't get to have her own pronounced arc.
I agree.
Other than just helping other people's arcs be facilitated.
That's
again,
that's why I will
say this is the complication I have. I'm fine with that because of who Evangeline Lilly is, but also, that's not great for
it's not great for the movie
hero and your lead,
especially because they wanted to do like the female Avengers thing, and like she was like central shot in that, like in the Infinity War or Endgame thing. The Endgame shot. It was just like that, and they're kind of like building her up to like, oh, maybe I'll have my own Disney Plus series or like some rumors. I'm like, no, I know, them. I know, I'm not them, but she did, and I'm like, you don't have control of that. You're not. That's not likely going to happen.
I hope not, but also whatever. Like
I hope not. Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of the Hope stuff. She is in service to other people's arcs, as I said. She helps. It is only the fact that she is there with Scott in two very crucial moments that anything gets done. So they're trying to solidify the whole Ant-Man and the Wasp element, but we've already stated it. She doesn't really have an arc of her own. She is in there to service other people's arcs. But versus Cassie, who actually has an arc to go through. Yeah,
she has her own arc, and she does very well. Like, she's well written in this. I do agree. Like, everything that she says, does, and like how I'm like, this is a well written character. She's like exactly what needs to be the naive person that's like starting shit up, and then the dad that's like, no, but we've protected it already.
But like that's not stopping her from wanting to do it. That is really great. That it's not like she knows how to do it already. It's just, look, this is something I should be doing because I can do it.
She's like, I want to help. And I'm like, that's good energy, kid. Keep it up, because your dad lost that, and you're right to call him out for it.
This isn't wrong for the movie, but just it was something that bothered me. It was at one point she goes like, it's what we've been doing, and I was like, please let this be a Young Avenger thing. And then I'm like, no, she definitely means Hank and Hope, which
family.
It makes sense for it makes sense for the movie, and again, how everyone's like, this is just a cog for the next thing. I'm like, it seems so self-contained, and I would say it was like watching a comic book, because obviously comic books are never truly self-contained, but it does feel like a one-off in a comic book series where it's like they told the beginning, middle, and end of the story. There are implications for later, but like not more so than any other MCU movie. This didn't feel like whatever they were hinting at got in the way of telling the story. It was a point of the story, which is, can you trust that like taking out this Kang is the right decision, knowing what he's talking about? And again, that feeds into the theme of the movie of like, is it better for, well, we know the answer is no, but would you actually be able to still engage with that thought process, or would you want to look away once you were like, yeah, I mean, I beat him the one time, so maybe I should just
I did my job, back to retirement, gonna write another book. And the funny thing is, in those final scenes, when they're book ending it with the same opening and the same kind of
I
ending,
was like, wait, did the movie theater fuck up? I was like, oh, he's saying different things because like, wait, is this
yeah,
the same exact same visual?
yeah, I really like that too, because that adds to the whole, oh, it felt self-contained to that degree, because it's like everything that happened within those two bookends did feel self-contained, and then the bridging to the next stuff happens in the post-credit scenes. I'm completely okay with that. It makes it feel it's kind of clever, right, to show you those kind of differences. But even in the end, I'm like, oh, I thought he was already doing his podcast. I'm like, oh, this is just him thinking to himself. This is so what, like, like I thought literally it was his audiobook the first time we were hearing it, or because it was connected to his
so the
book
first time
reading,
you're
right?
hearing it, you are hearing him read the story,
because he's
it's
reading
the book,
it to the kid. Yeah.
And then the second time it's him actually
it's
thinking, and then we
thinking.
hear his audio. We never hear his podcast.
Right. Okay.
He's only ever reading the book or listening to the book, and then at the end it's him talking to himself.
Again, like the narcissism is in his character. It's just like, it's all about me, and I gotta, like, even though I'm the small guy, I'm gonna make the biggest deal about this. And I love how the whole family was like, oh, you saved the world. Yeah, when was the last time you talked about that? I can't remember. It like was, and oh god, even when Janet got in on that was hilarious.
Janet
that was
so good.
Yeah,
I'm such a Michelle Pfeiffer fan. Okay.
Oh yeah. 100%.
The other thing was, people were like, "Oh, Hank Pym is just a completely different character." I'm like, "Well, he's changed, because he's has older. Everything he wants. The only difference is he has everything he wants, and he's trying to keep it going. But he's happy now because he's got a de facto granddaughter. He's got his daughter. He's got his wife. So he has what he wants in life." And now he's trying to help his, again, I know it's not his granddaughter, but like he's trying to help Cassie like keep going with wanting to help people. And so he's not just resting. But he's happy. So like I'm like, why would he still be grumpy? Like he has his wife back, he has his daughter, that he's on good terms with his daughter. And he has another generation to help influence to do the right thing. Like
his character shift makes total sense. It's like, he's happy, and what do you do when you're happy? You support other people, like, and that's what he does the entire movie. He supports other people, and then with the ants at the very, very end, he's supporting obviously the whole thing, and with the resources he's built and all that kind of stuff. So it's just like this idea of like, okay, they're having that commentary on it, but his character makes sense. He's just supporting people at that point. And he's no longer ambitious for his own thing.
And if you're talking about the first Ant-Man movie, or even Endgame, where he still seems grumpy, it's like, he's like a young guy that thinks no one understands him. But in this situation, he's an older person, more confident, more like able to see like, I have value, and I have the people around me that matter to me. Like and I don't get that criticism of like, boy, they just wrote a different guy. I'm like, no, he just evolved as a character because that makes sense for his circumstances.
And here's the thing I will point out too. His mortal enemy is dead. He hates the Starks. There are no more Starks.
He's now living in a world. He doesn't have to deal with S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Starks are gone. So he's like they're not, because they're still Morgan Stark. But
right. But like she's not caught up yet. He's clearly gonna go before she becomes CEO through nepotism. But I mean, like it's again a problem he doesn't have to deal with for too long. It's like Brexit, right? It's just like
okay. I think it's more he's just happy, and as you said, he doesn't have any of the stressors like a Stark or S.H.I.E.L.D. to deal with. So that takes care of the other scenes where he wasn't missing his wife or thing. And then for the other scenes where he was missing his wife and had a terrible relationship with his daughter, that also explains why he's grumpy. And now he has a good relationship with his daughter. He's actually working on stuff with her, not the Pym Van Dyne thing, but working on Cassie. Like obviously gave her a suit. They like there's a lot of things that, and again, I get that there's some things that they don't explicitly say, but I like that the movie trusts you to be like, oh, that like she said we've been working on it, so that obviously means they gave her a suit as well. Like they wouldn't not give her a suit. Like there's just things you can make the connections for yourself, and it's not because I'm a big fan that wants to make the connections for them. It's because it's like, well, that some things you don't need to say, you can just show it and then have people be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
No, I like Hank in this movie. I'm like,
this is the most I've ever liked him. I mean, I get
agree.
There's sometimes where it's fun to be like, this guy's so cranky, like the beginning of Ant-Man where he punches the guy in well, clearly he was Hydra, but the guy from Shield, and you're just
Yeah.
like yeah, like that's fun. But like this, I like that he's like, what? I like ants. This is
Mhm.
great. And like even when he walks in with the ants when they're trying to topple Kang's
Yeah.
Emma or like Citadel, I was just like, yeah, I didn't think I would care, but I'm genuinely happy that he got this hero shot that like
Yeah.
he gets to walk. I'm like, good for you, Hank.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Or the way he dealt with the I almost said Cosby, Bill Murray scene where
I was
it's
going to bring
just
that up right now. Yeah.
I was just like, you know what? That's pretty evolved. That he's just like, oh yeah, he had needs, like
Yeah,
whatever. And
needs.
I had my thing. She wasn't you, so like it's whatever.
Yeah, that was cute. That was cute. It's like I had this other thing, and like neither of them are mad at each other because it's like,
Yeah,
what did you want me to do? Like,
exactly.
it's like this is perfectly reasonable. I'm not going to be mad at you for this,
Yeah,
and they're
like they
just
didn't
being
try and
honest
use
at
that
that
as
point.
like.
Yeah,
I like that Bill. I don't remember the character name. I like that Bill
yeah.
Murray tried to use it to put a wedge between them, and they were just
Oh,
like,
100%.
yeah,
He's just being that jealous ex that's like,
yeah,
remember that one time? And he's just like, dude, no, like, what are you
yeah.
doing? But yeah, the fact that his character is that's the reaction is like, all right, yeah, let's put it all on the table right now. What are we gonna lose? And then it was fun. It was a very evolved character, and the most, like you said, I've ever liked Hank. I
Yeah.
really liked Hank in this movie because everything he did made sense. So people were
Yeah.
like, he's not grumpy anymore. I'm like, do you want him to be? Is that something you want?
I mean, that's
I'm like,
that's the problem with that, and I'm not going to spend
yeah,
time going over again. Like we've talked about it. Like
yeah.
it's the problem with people who don't actually want to watch these movies getting to review them
Yeah.
and cover them, and the problem with people
The
who hot take, I do think there is a wrong way to enjoy something, but like publicly anyway. And
oh yes.
they're like, yeah, the people that need it to be a very specific way, or else how dare they, and
Yeah.
not understand the concept of adaptation as opposed to just you just wanted them to make the panels move, and then
Mhm.
that's that. Like you could just read the comics again. Like the whole point is to make it a different experience and get new
Mhm.
people on board. But anyway, I think yeah, that's the weird thing, right? Like you stray too far, and why did you even call it MODOK, or why'd you even do this? Or you go right thinking like, well, I already knew that was going to happen, and then you fucked if you do, you fucked if you don't. So like,
Mhm.
I think yeah, there's a bunch of people, we've already said it, that engage with this. I don't think in good faith,
Mhm.
um, and maybe they have to do it because wherever they work is telling them they have to watch these movies, but
Mhm.
I just feel like, yeah, I keep seeing the
It's
whole, well, it's the only thing out. I'm like, it just isn't. There's just, that is
that's
not
not
a thing.
true.
It's
That's
not
not
true that
true.
it's the only thing out. If you really didn't
No.
want to watch it, don't watch it and review something else. Like,
Yeah.
just, there is other stuff out there, and that would
Review.
force other people to go watch other things.
Yeah. Review foreign stuff. There you go.
Review foreign
Like.
stuff. Sorry if it's not in theaters and you can't get an exclusive, hey, I
Mhm.
watched this 5 days before you did, so here's my
Yeah.
review. Like, go just do
Mhm.
something on streaming then. Like, get
Yeah.
people to go on movie, get people to do like, I did. It's not the only game in town,
Yeah.
and if all you're gonna do is watch it and then complain that you had to watch it, then I'm not truly interested in that.
It feels weird. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think there are legitimate arguments to be made about things not pulling together well in this movie, but
I'm not saying the
ultimately,
movie is perfect. I'm saying
yes.
that
Yeah. But
it
don't
doesn't
watch it
matter
with the
what the movie
intention of
is.
hating it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like if you're watching it to get through it and then be like, yeah, like
But
let me just give a generic criticism of it that might stick because people are tired of these movies now. And then
yeah.
like, come on.
Don't jump on the bandwagon. Don't
Yeah.
don't jump on the hating
You're saying
bandwagon.
more by not covering it, actually.
Yeah.
Like, to
And
cover it and keep it in the zeitgeist is a weird thing to do.
yeah, and it's just like it's weird. It's also weird because like you and I both know, or like pretty much a lot of people know now that like clickbait or like outrage kind of
Well, I'm
stuff
saying
is more
maybe their publication
profitable.
is like you have to do
Yeah,
it.
which is like it's just shit that like the outrage social media platform kind of stuff keeps you engaged and therefore like more ad revenue for them. But if they're contributing to that, that sucks. If it's a genuine like review of like hey, I didn't like that they did this with Kang because he's like this is the backstory and they rewrote this and all that kind of fun. I'm like, all right, well, you can not like it for that reason, but it doesn't you can't go into the movie with that. And most of these people are at this point.
Yeah, like I
And
saw someone being like, oh, Kang completely missing the point in my opinion, but like,
Mhm.
you know, Kang and Thanos, their whole thing was just there's not enough, or there's too many superheroes. I can't really disagree with them. I'm like, what?
What?
But like, they're willing to kill, as Janet said, trillions of people to get rid of the superheroes. So like,
Yeah.
what do you mean you can't be mad at that? You fucking idiot! Like, like you got paid to like have that hot take. Like, give me a break.
It's weird. And I will say one thing. In regards to the multiverse thing and all, it's hard for me to care right now about each of the individual multiverses. Like Doctor Strange came the closest to be like establishing, oh, this is this character in this universe and all that kind of stuff, right? That so it made me care about one multiverse. But I think Marvel needs a little bit more of that in the future to really make us care, because it didn't.
Here what I'd say:
you need
this
more
movie
skin
is
in the game.
You're kind of proving this movie's point, if that's
Yeah.
your take.
Right. What do you mean?
You need to see it before you care.
No, it's not that I
The
need to see it.
concept of loss of life should be important enough.
It is important. Don't get me wrong. I want more involved. I want higher stakes, is what I'm saying. So,
Yes.
like, I don't. From a storytelling perspective, I'm a dark guy when it comes to storytelling. That's why I liked Kang in this. But like,
what do you mean? I want higher stakes. Like, how are there higher stakes than what you already presented?
The problem is like basically I will fully admit, I'm basically saying I want to get to Secret Wars faster, because that's when we have like, I'm pretty sure what will happen.
Then I want high stakes.
This is why I'm saying
very high stakes.
This is why I'm completely admitting this, that I'm like, I can see where they're going with this, where they're taking parts of different multiverses and smashing them together in that board like style and then doing that fight. So I'm like, yeah, cool. I'm just waiting for that, knowing that that's
having
coming.
Said that, like they were already doing that in Phase 4, bringing that shit up.
I know.
So I was just like, why is everyone now like, oh, see, now you know what they're doing in Phase 4? I'm like, they were doing this before. Like, did you not watch Loki? Did you not watch Multiverse of Madness? Like, this was already explicitly stated in those things, and then every other movie had something that touched on incursions, or like even Wakanda Forever, even though she wasn't saying it specifically about that, said this incursion, and like it was a big part of Phase 4. And now everyone, again, my general thing for this review is I feel like I'm being gaslit, as if somehow this movie is the only movie that has ever explained what MCU is trying to do post Endgame, while also just being a typical cookie cutter run of the mill MCU movie.
There's too many of the same stereotype critiques that just like, are you just saying this about every superhero movie now? Because I don't feel like that's accurate to this one. There are some that but I don't think this is cookie cutter whatsoever.
No, this is not because this movie is specifically not letting you feel okay with two of its leads' decision makings to the end. Like, it's not like you feel better about, realistically you shouldn't feel better about Janet's decision making or Scott's at the end.
No, you shouldn't.
And again, I don't see that as a flaw or oops, I guess they forgot to tie that up. It's more like, no, they represent very real types of people in life.
I feel like this is the same camp of people that are like, I can't believe they just made Wanda evil like that. I'm like, what are you talking about? I feel like they're the exact same people, because I'm like, did you not watch WandaVision? That was her being evil the entire time and being selfish.
Any movie she's been in, which was really like up until WandaVision, the whole thing was like, look, this woman has lost a lot. Well, she started losing when she was a kid, and like
trauma and all this kind of shit, and then the mistakes that she made.
She already started as a villain,
yeah.
So these actions would probably bring her full circle back to being like, you know what, fuck you guys.
Because what I say to those people, I'm like, when did she fully redeem herself? She just joined the Avengers for a little while, and it wasn't that long because she was still 19 or whatever it was. And it's the idea of like, yeah, she's the most powerful, therefore the most dangerous, because she all this kind of trauma. But she was never fully good. So I don't get what people are saying.
To be, but
she wanted to be.
Your point,
absolutely.
To your point, at no point should you be like fully redeemed, because she still was doing messed up things to, help Ultron and keep like cause destruction,
and despite the fact that, you could say Mind Stone, same argument with Hawkeye's character, but then the idea of like, okay, but look,
she wasn't under control of the Mind Stone, she was just unlocked by it. different than Hawkeye.
her powers were unlocked by it, but Ultron being alive, like she was under the control of the Mind Stone, wasn't she? Or was she directly under the Ultron's kind of manipulation?
She wasn't under anything. She just heard
so
something
it was just manipulation.
and was like,
oh, right.
And
okay.
it's exactly the Janet Kang thing, which was it wasn't until she put her hand on the cradle and was like, wait, whoa, that's what you're trying to do? I don't want any parts of that. And the same, it's if you want to say that's cookie cutter, fine. Then yeah, they copied something from Age of Ultron in this movie. There you go. The valid critique if you want to critique this movie on something objectively that they copied.
Yeah, I don't think that's valid. But
no,
I mean,
I don't. Saying I don't. I'm just saying I can acknowledge that they used that beat already. The same time where Janet was like, I was on board until
I found out,
saw what was in his mind. They can use different languages they want, but essentially it's this woman who looked up to some guy and then she got to see what was actually in his head and was like, whoa, no, not into it anymore. That happened to both Scarlet Witch and Janet.
I get that, but I mean, like, I think that's just a more broader sense of a storytelling device of like how manipulative and evil and well calculated these characters are.
I'm saying that you can do it more than just generically because they literally touched something that made them see it. And it's visually the same and conceptually the same.
I do like
it's
that.
Fine, but what if someone were to be like, hey, it's cookie cutter, maybe they want to hang on to that one thing that happened in one other movie.
And that's not the definition of cookie cutter whatsoever.
Yes, exactly.
It's like, but how often do you use this cookie cutter? Is this the Christmas tree cookie cutter where it only gets used reasonably once a year? Like, are you complaining at this point? Because
out of
we've
31
done
movies that did that thing. And again, I'm saying for the specifics of Quantumania, not every Marvel. I'm saying
correct.
I can see one thing where you're like, well, that seems like a copy and paste. I don't feel it is. I think this movie was well thought out enough that that's just, as you said, a storytelling device they used. But if you wanted to and not give them the fanboy reasonable doubt thing, benefit of the doubt, you could just be like, they copied that they already did. But again, to your point and my point, doesn't make it cookie cutter because they reused the
correct concept. Because that argument is better laid for Iron Man and Doctor Strange, like those two movies, which I've said it's not good. But it's a better argument is what I'm saying. Like, there's more evidence there of that lame ass argument than there is here. There's one thing cool. By the way, is it cookie cutter that Ant-Man grew again? Because they used that in 3 movies, and that's how they, basically won in all 3 movies. Is that cookie cutter? Like, it's what he does. Why would you? Are we blaming him for not evolving his power? We know why he didn't. He became like this hey, look at me kind of guy that's like, I'm going to tell my story. He's stalled his progression. Why would his powers evolve or anything like that? Right. So it's just like everything that they're asking for is just like, I don't think that's reasonable out of this. I don't want to because I don't want to create a straw man out of this. All I'll say is I heard that it was called cookie cutter also while being like, I feel like that critique is
this is the
cutter.
first time this is just a commercial for the other one. I'm like,
they all are.
I can't imagine that 31 movies in you think that's a valid criticism. Like,
exactly,
that is what they do. This is what they're doing. Yes, they want you to go see the next thing. That is how they were able to make 31 of these and TV shows, because people keep wanting to see what happens next.
It's like that poor movie critic that was forced to review Deadpool, that didn't know anything about the Deadpool character and was like, this is grotesque, this is dirty, this is raunchy, this is all this kind of stuff. It's like, you're just describing Deadpool. You don't know the backstory. And I'm sorry, like, it sucked that you were put on assignment for here, but it reaks of like
anyway,
a cookie cutter review, to be perfectly honest.
I think that reviewer had a unique experience to what I think is happening now, which is people have just decided like down with MCU, which is fine. This isn't me saying how dare you. These movies are perfect and you can't say anything bad about them. If you genuinely want to watch these movies and you take that assignment because that's something you wanted to watch, you were looking forward to seeing Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and you didn't like it, that's different than like, oh my god, another Marvel movie. Here we go. I'm gonna turn my brain off and
Because
completely ignore all these things that it is clearly a movie that is. You can argue that they didn't execute properly. You can argue that like it was sloppily done, but like there is stuff in there that they are talking about that is relevant, like 100% relevant today that they're talking about. It's not just a general concept, like specifically talking about displaced people and the whole like unhoused issues that are happening for the majority of the people who are going to go watch this movie, and the cops role in that, the idea that if you have power, the idea isn't to just keep hoarding it, but to help people out. This is a very real life. This is a perfectly placed movie for stuff like that. Forget about what they're doing in Phase 5. Forget that you didn't get to see who Reed Richards is going to be or Sue Storm. Forget all that bullshit and engage with that. If I was hearing criticisms of how they fumbled that concept, I would be like, you know what? Yeah, like this is an interesting conversation. This isn't it. But to just hear it's cookie cutter, I don't know. Like, clearly superhero fatigue because they've run out of ideas. No, I'm like, you watch the movie.
I feel like those people
you sat
embody
through the
Scott
movie till
Lang.
it was the end. Like you just wanted to get to the end of the movie and you already knew what you were gonna say.
It's disingenuous and it's unfair because they're not reviewing the movie, they're critiquing the meta of it all, which is critique the meta of it all, but make the subject of that a genuine critique as opposed to sliding it into a critique that's supposed to be about one individual thing, right? The idea of like when people started like doing my review of Phase 4, I'm like, okay, this is where this kind of opinion really, really belongs, and like expand on that. But to slot it into an individual movie to be like, this is cookie cutter, I'm like, no, your review's starting to get cookie cutter for me now. It's not a genuine review of this, and it's just detaching from something, and it's just like I do agree with what you said. If they fumbled the ball on how they told that element of displacement and all those kind of stories, then sure, so be it. But I mean, for those people that are like, it's not relevant, I'm like, okay,
again,
if it
I
helps
don't want to
you,
disrupt it. I never heard anyone say it's not relevant other than to say it was
Sure.
just a nothing movie and thing. I just think that
that's what I mean. It's not relevant. If they're dismissing it, they're saying it's not relevant. But
the
I'm like,
reason
no,
I want
we
to
are
use
saying
their
it
words
is.
for this specifically is because
Right.
I don't want to get caught up in the whole, hey, they made a straw man argument. I want
Right.
to make sure that I'm using their words specifically.
Fair enough.
I can make my own conclusions that you assume this is irrelevant.
Right.
I can do that. But what the words they used were a nothing burger or like saying things like that. And I think it's more to what you're talking about, the meta of it. Like, well, this did nothing to make me more excited about MCU, or this did
How is that
to...
possible though for those people?
But that's what I'm saying. Again,
so
I'm
weird.
assuming what they mean, but I'm trying to use their words because what my argument is that it is a movie that has relevant themes, and for me to not be able to see anything that engages with that is weird. And again, leads to me feeling like I'm being gaslit. And this is probably weird thing to say that about, but it is like, it's what we do. We do this podcast, so this is what we talk about. And so it's like, what is happening here? Like, and again, I'm it's not me being like, we should all love these movies. You can 100% not like these movies. You can 100% voice your opinion about why you don't like these movies. But if all I'm gonna do is see you be like, oh my god, like they just made another cookie cutter movie, then what are we like? What's the point of that? Why not engage with what the movie was actually trying to do? And I am open to the idea that they did not execute properly on what they were actually trying to do instead of what you wanted them to do or what you thought they were going to do. Like, they did something, and they were engaged with something very meaningful. And
at least to us. Because I could get that people don't care about it, but like they're being the Scott Langs, we're being the Cassie Langs in this.
Like it's very. But even in that point, that anyone could see themselves in this movie, it's not a movie where it's just like, well, I'm not Tony Stark. Even though I'm not saying this is other Marvel movies. I'm just saying you could just flippantly be like, I'm not a billionaire. Why do I have to? Or you could critique Tony Stark and be like, this is all his fault. Or the same way people like to critique Batman and be like, he's a billionaire. He could be doing more. Like, I'm not even hearing that about this movie, which this movie is trying to engage with as well, which is this is Scott trying to make himself closer to power by being like, I'm this celebrity. You'll notice at the end of the movie, he still has to pay for he has to go back to paying for his coffee. It's like he lost that status, and I love that. I love that he has something to grapple with now. Like
and he's
he
got
was
doubt.
able to not
Yeah.
think about it, and now he has to think about it, and he's trying not to. And it's showing you, so he does change. It's not that he stays in one place. It's more, before he was just not seeing it, and now he's been given the information, and he has to deal with it, and he's choosing. No, I still choose to not think
Look
about
on the
this.
bright side.
Yeah,
The toxic positivity kind of
exactly.
thing.
And I think that you can see yourself in this movie. You don't need the powers to be able to talk to ants or shrink or get bigger. People looking at this will see themselves, and and again, I don't mean that based on ethnicity or any ability to.
No, of course not.
Like the way people view the world. There's these viewpoints in there, and for grounding it in displaced people. Yeah. That is something everyone deals with. There are people who are annoyed that there's unhoused people. There are people that want to help them. There are people that want to get rid of them. There's a spectrum there. And it's like, that is something that doesn't matter how wealthy or unwealthy. There's something you are. That's something you deal with in life.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, like, for those people that are like, it goes back to the whole, like, if you can't identify it, think of the Poland thing, like it's the Ukraine thing, because it's just like when the news cycles were like, if this even happens to people that look like this, and just like, it happens to literally everyone, and just like, this is what that's saying. Like, look at the role,
unhoused and displaced than you are to being.
Look at the economic impact. Like economically right now, it's just like, how many people, Americans, whatever, and Canadians, or just anyone, are just struggling financially, trying to make ends meet, right? A lot of people, and that is displacement in its own right. So it connects to a lot more people than we think, and just like even the rich being like what it is, it's just, that's what the point of it showing you. The people that are secure in the world, Scott Lang, now have doubt because everything is, there's reflection in all this kind of stuff, but it's.
And that's even tied to his first movie. It was like, you're no longer the hero to your daughter. Like, I like the moment where he's like, you're my hero. You've always been my hero. Like, because I believe that. Like, that is part of a good thing of it being so tied to the universe, which is especially the three movies. There's stuff from Ant-Man and Wasp that makes sense. I don't like the movie, but it's still layered into this. Obviously, mostly the Janet stuff, but like this movie brought with it this stuff from the first and second movie. It's not completely divorced from that. It's also, they talk about other heroes, which is fine. I like that. They're not implying that no other heroes, but like the first movie, they made a good point of it being just the Langs and the Pims. There isn't going to be, I mean, even though that movie had Falcon in it, it was like they're trying to do something under the radar. So no, they're not bringing in the other heroes. Whereas Ant-Man and the Wasp, you're like, I mean, someone's got to show up, right? Like someone's got to do something. But this one's like, it's in the quantum realm. They're not gonna have any, like, you don't need to have anyone else there. So that sets the containment. But it is still playing off of themes, and like that love between Scott and Cassie is so present in this, and it's being used to motivate him, and also it's what scares him. And I mean, we're doing Last of Us. I've said this like 10 times this episode already, but like you see how all of that plays together as well. If you love The Last of Us, this movie is showing similar things, like in terms of what love can do, and how that can cut you off from doing the right thing, and how it can motivate you to do the right thing.
Yeah, like showing you the selfish aspects of love and all that kind of stuff, right? And not necessarily destructive, but the consequences of what that selfishness leads to, or could potentially lead to, which is like, go check out Last of Us episodes if you don't check those out. But it's some great storytelling in this. I do see that. There are some things that still rub me the wrong way.
Yeah,
but
again, it is not a perfect.
It's
movie.
not perfect whatsoever.
It was just a movie that genuinely excited me. Like I was like, wow, okay, like they're doing something here.
Yeah,
and I am open to hearing how they didn't do it well. It worked for me. Maybe I'm a dummy, but it worked for me. And I just don't understand how that isn't part of the conversation. And
right.
I know I threw out there that you didn't get to see Fantastic Four or something else world building, but like
I disagree with that.
I feel
entirely.
like, but I do feel like that is part of it. Like I saw what everyone assumed was going to happen in this movie,
Right.
what we were going to see in the quantum realm, and I feel like it's WandaVision again, where people are
Mhm.
like, "Give me the Fantastic Four, or else the whole show is null and void." And I'm not saying everyone critiquing it is saying that. I'm saying that this is one where fans like that and critics who don't like having to cover this stuff get to meet and have a great time, and that
Mhm.
Venn diagram becomes the circle of people are just going to shit on this. Doesn't
Yeah.
really matter what actually happened.
Yeah.
And again, not to say that every critic who didn't like it because they just don't like MCU, and that every fan who didn't like it because they didn't get some kind of mind-blowing cameo or world-building thing.
Mhm.
It's just, I think that those are the very vocal people, and we see that when like initially
Mhm.
well, I guess this is another Last of Us episode, but when initially episode 3 came out,
Mhm.
and it was review bombed by people who didn't like the gay representation in it, and so it, like, you're seeing like 1 and 2 are like 9s, and 3 somehow is a 7.9, and you're like,
Yeah.
that's what I mean by very vocal people, like the people that will go out of their way to leave those reviews. It might not be
Yeah.
the sentiment of everyone, but they are putting their they're putting their voice in places I can see it.
Yeah. They're trying to do whatever they can to make themselves heard, which
Yes.
is, I understand that desperation. I understand that insecurity. I don't understand where I do understand it, and it's sad and it sucks. But I don't condone it either.
No.
It's not great. It's some inward growth. Not to be preachy, but like, yeah, we need some empathy in that side of things.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of people that are like, I get it, you're a critique, you're a movie reviewer and all this kind of stuff, but you have the option of saying no to this project for someone that actually wants to review this objectively.
And they might not like it too, but
Yeah.
I'm hoping that because they actually wanted to see it, they'll
Yeah.
have something more meaningful to say with their critique.
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole idea of like, hey, let us do the work that we want to do and stop just retire already. Get out of the way. Let us let us review this stuff, and
Or as I
instead
said,
of
you if you're the thought leader there, you're the guy. Sorry, not the guy. That's
the leader. Yeah.
But if you're the person there that people want to click on, like your name means something. Like the movie said, like, you stop trying to amass power by just reviewing the things that everyone will click on. Like, actually do something to spread the, and it's low stakes because we're talking about movies, but like,
Yeah.
the media, the art that countries put out means something. It isn't completely frivolous.
No, it
does
means
mean
something.
So if you are worried about the superhero thing and then Marvel's ruining everything, do something, man. Like, start reviewing bigger things. Make that the big thing. Make that the big splash page. Then, like, stop. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to make it clear. Like, I'm not saying you can't not like these movies. That's
right.
How dare you? It's
so.
If you're worried, why are you still doing that? Just put out more content about other things that maybe you don't like, but it's different than a superhero movie and it might spark something for somebody. They might be like, oh, like, I want to go see, like, that's why I'm on Letterboxd. Like, you start following the right people, you'll see movies that you didn't think to look at, and like, I'm very aware that superhero movies aren't the only things out.
Yeah. There is something you said there that I would put back on just a little bit, where you're like, this is low stakes because it's a movie. And this is where I disagree. I feel like this is where the responsibility of media is, because if we look at the biggest export from America, it is media and therefore culture, right? So there is inherent value to these messages being exposed to more people. It's low stakes in the sense where it is a movie,
like, people's lives, and so, like, when you talk about trans rights, when you talk about displaced, that's what I mean.
But I think
not that it's low stakes for the people's profession. It is the profession. It is the highest of stakes.
No, not necessarily stakes. I mean, the idea of sharing thought and ways of thinking and political issues and all that kind of stuff, to disseminate all that as a message. I think that is not low stakes. I think because you reach so many people and it's thought provoking in that sense, it's a higher stakes thing because it's revolving around making you uncomfortable and therefore having a conversation.
Yeah.
Did Scott do the right thing? Did he do the wrong thing? Obviously, we know as an audience, by the way we feel in the post-credit, he did the wrong thing. He's unleashed the Kang dynasty, right?
Yeah.
And when people are like, oh, this doesn't build world build, I'm like, you don't think the Kang dynasty is world building? You don't think the season 2 Loki thing is world building? Like, this is world building stuff. It's just, I feel like it got to the point for like the MCU audience to just expect more and more and more and more. And I'm like, there needs to be a point where everyone reckons with the idea of like too much becomes really the problem that a lot of people are critiquing about phase 4 was that there was too much to keep up with. So I'm like, where is the balance of what they do? And I just think that MCU just pushing forward and doing their own thing and just ignoring all the haters, because it's just, they're hating on the superhero genre, and that's not fair. Because
Okay,
I'm
I
like,
think you got off of what you
I
were
did get
talking
off.
about initially,
Yeah.
but so I'll just address the first part.
Right.
We were saying the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that whatever you said made it clearer to other people, but we were saying the same thing. There was
I do
we had a
agree
bit
with
of
what you're
pushback.
saying. Yeah.
But yeah, I was saying that in the grand scheme of things, it may seem like it's lower stakes, but as you said, we were saying the same thing. That is a big point of how people frame life, is the media they intake and stuff, and so it matters, but also actual legislation things do matter more.
I
But
get what you mean by that,
influence,
by putting it in
yeah.
perspective that way. But I'm like, the just sheer number of thought to me makes it so that it can't be described as low stakes anymore. But like the immediacy of the other things you bring up, that can be described as high stakes. So I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, like, there's a little bit of pushback on just the phrase, calling it low stakes, because I do believe that this does push that discussion forward a lot more, and that is important to me.
But and then the second part of you saying, yes, I agree that but I did
lose myself a little bit there. I
agree with what you're saying. It's as I said, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, right? Like, there's no point in trying to appease those fans.
You can't make everyone happy. You just make the vast majority happy, because that's what's going to make you the money, baby, and that's what Marvel's doing.
But yeah, is there any other character we're talking about? Do you want to get into the mid-credit and post-credit?
There's Cassie. I mean, we really didn't spend that much time talking about Cassie. I was just saying,
I really liked her. She was great. I thought she was well written.
Yeah.
And I think she's actually pushing the story forward, because she is the younger generation.
Yes.
It's like, no, there's something that needs to be done. Like, and I like that she gets the opportunity to save the leader of the resistance group, and then instead of being like,
we got to do this,
it's like, all right,
I'm going to support you.
You have a plan. Great.
Yeah.
Like, we will do that. Like, that is how that's going to happen. I'm trying to, and I hope the idea wasn't like, great, now we're even because I saved you, but it's more like, I need to atone for the trouble I caused you, and I'm here to help, like, until, I mean, forever, basically. I'm hoping the idea, like, if you need help, I'm here.
Yeah, I don't know what it's saying, but I like the idea that she's like, she went from like naive, strong-willed to like, I'm gonna do like just action towards like, no, wait, maybe I'm gonna support the people that are already doing this, as opposed to doing my own thing and taking over their shit, right? So I do like that character development was like, yeah, exactly. So I'm really, really glad that her character went that way. And there's a lot of great writing for her character, and I don't think I spoke enough about that. The Janet stuff, great writing, great performances. It's just like, it's just so great, because it's so frustrating, and that's what made me care about it. It really, really did care. We didn't actually talk about. No, we did. Sorry, my bad.
I liked I never remember what order his name is in. I think it's William Harper Jackson, but it might be William Jackson. I don't. But Chidi from The Good Place. I'll be honest, I went into it hoping like maybe he will secretly just be Reed Richards. Obviously, he's not. But
he's just Chidi in this with powers. He's just Chidi.
I really like that. He's like, can you please stop thinking about that? Just stop thinking that. Please stop. He's like,
please stop. Please stop.
He's like, do you really think that? He's like, well, no, I obviously don't really think. Scott being like, obviously don't really think that, but now I'm nervous, so I'm saying things. I'm sorry. Yeah, I liked the world they built there for
Mhm.
that resistance group, and I'm glad he didn't die. Or maybe he did die and I didn't see, but I don't think he died.
I don't
So
think he died. I don't think anyone that we met in that resistance group actually died,
I
except
think
for
Lightbulb
David
had a
Dalmatian's character. That was the light bulb firing guy. Yeah,
no,
he
that's not
died.
David Desmalchin.
That's
David
not.
Desmalchin's the guy that has holes or wanted holes.
Oh, the guy that wanted holes. Oh,
Yeah,
that's funny. Okay, so like the light bulb or
he
flashlight
dies
head guy, he
because
dies.
Kang reverses it on him, and
Yeah, and that was crazy.
yeah, that was wild.
Yeah, watching Kane go off was wild because I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
I
that's
don't.
what it looks like uncontained. That's
Yeah,
frightening.
I really, and I thought the final fight where he doesn't have his gadgets anymore and
Yeah.
he's just punching and kicking Scott. I was like, this is still effective to me. Like
Oh yeah.
I didn't think anyone was gonna die in this movie, and obviously characters die, but not any
Yeah.
named the characters that
Mhm.
we knew beforehand.
Mhm.
Well, I guess Modoc dies, but
Yeah.
like the heroes don't die, and
I thought that was weird.
I thought like I mean he could just stay there. Like I could like they could just cut him off. Like
Yeah.
but also just the intensity with which he was like they again I thought it was subtle, but it was like he's constantly Kang looking at his broken thing, so he doesn't have the
Mhm.
power he used to have, and it's just like no, my determination will get me through this. I'll
Yeah.
still beat the shit out of you.
So I actually thought they were going to keep him in the quantum realm
Yeah,
because I'm like, yeah, this would be a perfect way for them to have that bookended thing where he's always in prison and he's just getting out and then he's into another fight or something like that. I'm like, I guess this would be a great way if they did an Ant-Man 4. Not that I'm advocating for one, but it's like
yeah,
it keeps up that same trademark within the Ant-Man franchise of like someone being in jail and then all that kind of stuff, right? So someone going back into jail or being trapped somewhere.
well
I
he's
thought
trapped in a
that's where he
prison of
was going
his
to
own
go.
thoughts now.
Yes, and I'm like, it's kind of good too because like earlier when he goes into the probability thing, probability storm, when Modoc goes like, yeah, you go in there, it'll do crazy things in your mind. So I don't know if like the last part, him saying it like a podcast and then reflecting is like him actually starting to go a little bit wild, or if he's like starting to mentally write his next book or something like that. But it
No,
was just
they resolved that, I think, in a good way, which was
okay.
when he hears Cassie's voice, that's enough for every one of them to be on the same page of like, oh, we're helping Cassie. Boom,
Right,
we did it.
right. And I
I
like the
don't.
probability. Like, no, I meant the fact that his mind is messed up now.
Well, I'm
Like,
saying they resolved. I don't think his mind is messed up from that. I think the
mm,
mind is messed up from the knowledge that like either I didn't actually fix things by not actually getting rid of Kang, or
mhm,
he is dead, and now I've opened us up to a bigger threat.
mhm, mhm.
That is what they're leaving him with, which I think is effective. That like
Yeah.
it's not that he is altered and isn't himself anymore. It's that
Mm,
like he has too much information now, and now he's just like, fuck, look, what do I do with
yeah.
this? Because as we said, he decided he just wants to be with his family. So now
Mhm.
he can't ever fully do that. Even if he's choosing to look away, I don't
Right,
think
right,
he'll
right.
successfully be able to do
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I was curious. I'm like, was that thing? But my other curiosity to you, and I want your opinion on it. Do you think this version of Kang is actually dead and gone, or do you think it's like he's just gone
No, I think he's just
subatomic,
been displaced again.
subatomic? Okay, so you think he's been displaced as well? Okay, yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, that's valid. You know why? Because I'm like, I want this version to still exist
Yeah.
because if knowing that the rest of the versions of Kang is less than this doesn't make me happy. It makes me happier
Well, it's
knowing
more
that,
just that there's a lot of them. So like even
yeah,
if they're all like
and
only
they'll
80% of him, that's still a big deal.
it's still a big deal because they have the council and they're all collectively working together to support
Yeah.
their own messed upness. They found that truce between them all, and this is the
Yes.
guy that's screwing it all up. I get that, but it's just the idea of him being the strongest, most aggressive, angriest. I'm like, him being defeated
I
by
think he's
Ant-Man
probably more the
didn't
most
want to.
effective because there was
True.
definitely ones there that looked angrier than him and more out
Fair.
of control, but I think he's the most effective.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you brought up the post credit scenes. I didn't like part of it is at Scotiabank Theater, they just blared the lights, so I genuinely couldn't see what was happening on the
Brutal.
screen.
Wow.
Yeah,
So it was obviously the reveal of the Council of Kings with
yeah.
the three head kings, the Kang Raman Tut, and I forget the other ones, but I mean like he's Jonathan Majors is just doing something crazy good with every iteration.
He's a great
of it.
actor.
He's a great
I don't
actor.
know anything about Kang really. I only know the blue face, green suit, purple thing. So like
Yeah.
all of this is kind of going over my head. It's not really important to me until they'll make it important to me.
I agree. Because
I'm like, I don't know this stuff.
Because all that kind of stuff is just like, okay, I don't think we're ever going to really spend that much time with each individual Kang. So which are the ones that are important? And I like that they're like, these three.
Like the three. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, so I'm like, okay, good. Because I did have genuine concern. I'm like, the Kang Dynasty, I'm like, how many Kangs am I going to have to care about? And it seems to be built around 3. And I'm like, I can deal with that.
Yeah.
I can deal with 3 Kangs to centrally care about. But if they're giving me like 18, I'm like, oh boy, it's Eternals all over again.
Yeah. No, and the Loki season 2 thing, like, I don't care. I'm going to watch it. Obviously, we probably will cover it. It's not that I don't care to that extent. It's just more like I don't really know what is happening, and I couldn't see it. So
right, it's this like old school, old timey like science fair thing where
I get it. Mobius seeing Kang for the first, or a Kang variant for the first time, I guess.
Yeah,
it seemed like the TVA had a big Kang variant statue in there, so like I don't know what the disconnect is, but the show will explain it. I'm not worried about it.
I'm pretty sure what's going to happen is that it's going to show us Loki is traveling to get that Mobius to recruit, like to basically go to another timeline and not stay. Yeah, the Mobius he knew this, and then to get that Mobius to defer this from happening, and he's doing his thing, but like the Mobius that we were left with is not this one. I don't think.
As I said, the show will explain it. I'm not worried
exactly
about it.
But I think the pivotal thing about that is like with all the question about like which Disney series are we actually going to see, I think it cements it in that. But I also think the important thing is like, really showing you Kang is unleashed. Like phase 5, expect Kang everywhere, just like how Wong was everywhere, but like literally everywhere. You know what I mean? That's what I think it says more than anything else. And I'm like, I'm here for it. I'm like, if I'm going to see Jonathan Majors much more doing all these wild things, I love it. Let's do it. Let's critique every single performance from He Who Remains to this to whatever he's going to do, because it's going to be awesome. Phase 5 and 6 is going to be Jonathan Majors, baby.
All right. Let's rate this movie. I'll go first.
Yeah.
I will give it an 8. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 7.5. I would. You talked up a lot more things that I didn't see, and I really appreciated that. Because again, there's still some things I'm mixed on. Like,
I'm not like, this wasn't me being like, what? This was a 10. They blew it out the water. It's just more like, I really think the first Ant-Man is strong, and maybe it's because I saw it in a movie theater. Maybe I'll with distance. I just thought this was better than the first one in terms of me feeling like they actually expanded on something. And as I said, that the fact that it was like it got lip service in the first one that he's anti-capitalist, but this movie was really engaging with that, and I thought like, I mean, right up my alley right now. Obviously that's not going to work for everyone, but it worked for me. In addition to like me not loving all the visuals, which doesn't really ever factor into things unless we're talking about is it a perfect movie. But like, I thought all that was good, and I think, I'll need more time with it. But my initial thought was, I thought this was really exciting, and it's an 8 for me. 7.5 for you. All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. We are part of the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows like Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Contra Zoom Pods. So please go to thatshelf.com. You'll find those shows, our show, more shows. It's a great time. You can find older episodes of our show at tdferything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter and Instagram are at tdfspoiled. So please get in touch with us. We're on all the podcast platforms. Unless we're not, then get in touch with us. Let us know where you want us to be. You know the deal. If it's for political reasons, which we haven't found any yet, but if it is for political reasons, we won't go there. But if we are just not on something that we should be on, Ben will wear a hat. And as he said, he needs you to get him in hat mode. Although I'm liking your hair today. So.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye, everybody.
Tschüss.
has been a TDF everything production, bruh.